Chapter 21. I Believe I Can Fly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian was not aware that in the pet shop in the town of Genesis that only 0.1% of the creatures there have a strain. The reason the information was unknown was because when picking a creature to familiarize with it does not tell the details. He was either very lucky or very passionate. Adrian was very eager to test Sirius' combat abilities, but he held himself back and checked the new skills that his soulbound obtained. Skill. Maul effect. The basic attack of the demon wolf species. Enhances damage of attacks using fangs or teeth by 10%. Skill. Phantom rush effect. Freezes the time in an area of 10-meter diameter for 5 seconds and attacks every enemy inside. Deals 1.5 times the attack damage. Cooldown. 5 minutes skill. Alpha Predator effect. Damage dealt to enemies induce bleed status. Deals 0.1% HP damage every second. Stacks up to 10 times. Overall damage increases by 10%. Speed increases by 1% per successful attack and increments up to 10 times that lasts until the end of the battle. Skill. Magic resistance effect. Magic-related damage are reduced by 5%. Skill. Magic core effect. Enables the monster to learn basic elemental magic. BL.net. Adrian's mind was blown away by the descriptions of the skills that Sirius has obtained. He was overpowered. If this was the result of him having the strain of a demon lupus, then what would happen if Adrian could inject him, if possible, with an even stronger strain? He was excited. If that were true, that means his soulbound could become stronger than any other summoner's soulbound. He calmed himself down a few moments later to focus on his objective of reaching level 10. The duo then proceeded to the area that was supposed to be the boss area according to the forums. The area was a hill that was 8 meters in height, but the twist is that this hill was actually a beehive. Outside the hive there were bees going in and out of the hive. Monster. Giant killer worker bees LVL 6 HP 80 description. These specific type of giant killer bees do not have a way to fight except lunging to the target using their stingers, but grow weak when the stinger leaves their body. They do make great honey though. Adrian commanded to start his assault, but first placed a space mine at the entrance of the hive that he will detonate later. Sirius started his assault. He became a blur instantly and reappeared to the closest worker bee. With just one swipe, the worker bee dropped to the ground and turned to pixels. OMG, said Adrian with a face that looked like the shocked face emoji. Sirius continued his assault, which made him faster and faster courtesy of his Alpha Predator passive skill. The worker bees tried to lunge at Sirius but inevitably met their swift demise, unable to carry out revenge. The ruckus outside alerted the soldier bees and even the queen bee and his 2 royal guards. The soldier guards numbered about a dozen. Monster. Giant killer soldier bee LVL 7 HP 100 description. The soldier bee keeps control and protects the hive if the hive is threatened. These bees are not afraid to sacrifice themselves for the hive. Monster. Giant killer royal guard bee LVL 8 HP 120 description. The royal guard bee protects the queen from harm. These bees are not afraid to sacrifice themselves for the queen. They use their enhanced spear-like upper foreleg to poke the intruder to death. Monster. Giant killer queen bee LVL 9 HP 200 description. The queen bee is the main source of the hive's coordination and longevity. Able to command legions of bees to decimate their foe. It seems we are a bit of a predicament, buddy, Adrian told Sirius with a slightly worried tone. We have to go all out then. Sirius, use howl. Adrian ordered. Sirius buffed himself, then jumped into the fray. As soon as he attacked, the queen bee was supposed to issue a command until the space all around it suddenly exploded, a sound like glass breaking. The blast disoriented the queen, which the royal guard bees went towards the queen to support the bee. So it was not enough damage. Sirius execute Phantom Rush, Adrian shouted. Sirius bangles suddenly glow and the area he was in and suddenly vanished in thin air. The area turned into a gray-colored silhouette where Sirius can be seen running on air as if it was solid ground. He was attacking faster than Adrian's eyes could follow. The skill Phantom Rush did not literally freeze time in an area but instead freezes the time for the user and lets the user move freely within that time frame in the specified area. The skill makes the user be unable to target unless the user has time manipulation skills or magics to counter the user in order to bring him back to the chains of the real world. The gray-colored area represents the area ... effect that the skill can reach, and once out of the area, you cannot be damaged. Although it is no easy feat to escape someone who escaped the philosophy of the world. This skill was the result of Adrian's constitution to his soulbound. Soulbounds are influenced by their master like in terms of skills and evolution, which is a reason why the summoner job is not that famous, because it is full of uncontrolled variables that can influence your gameplay. Adrian was not sitting idly as Sirius undergoes his skill. He made tons of space mines until his mana was completely emptied and bombarded the living hell out of the bees. The bees was not even able to retaliate and was directly turned into pixels. Player has leveled up. Adrian was so tired after the battle that he slumped towards the ground. He then reluctantly stood up to pick up the loot. He got bronze and silver coins and some interesting items. The most important was a silver-grade soul stone. Item: Killer Queen Beat Soul Stone requirement. Insectomancer description: Soul Stone of the Killer Queen Bee. The soulbound can produce a hive of bees dependent of the level of the user. Know of summoning trial. Free item: Killer Bee Honey description: This honey is to die for. Item: Ring of the Queen Bee Tear. Rare effect. Increases health regeneration by 50%. Has a very small chance of triggering a poison effect on attacks. Adrian was very happy with the loot, although he could not utilize the soul stone since it was restricted to an insectomancer. An insectomancer is a job advancement for a summoner which mainly deals with insect summons. Adrian wanted the Killer Queen Bee because he utilized an army but opted to sell it instead because he is not that fond of insects, and the army would probably have multiple restrictions since the soulbound was the queen bee, not the entire beehive. Adrian with Sirius in tow went to the teleport gate, then to the fracture to return to the paradox plane. Adrian then went to the town hall to look for Askeler. Askeler then smiled as he went to teach the next part of the quest. Quest Growing Stronger I has been completed. Quest notification: Growing Stronger 2. Askeler wants you to learn to utilize your wings, for the imp race are the only ones of the Deimos that can take to the skies. Clear condition. Acquire Flight Mastery 2 reward. Random rune box: I totally forgot that the imp species could fly. Haha, Adrian muttered. I believe this calls for a demonstration then, Askeler reprimanded. Chapter 22. Take the Skies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian then asked Askeler how can he sprout wings, since the only race he knows that can fly are the Dragonkin, and their wings are permanently attached to their body, plus they already gained the skill to fly the moment they created their characters. Adrian looked at Askeler with a face looking lost. Askeler then told him that in order to sprout the wings, he has to imagine them sprouting from his back. Askeler then demonstrated and showed his wings to Adrian. Askeler sprouted a pair of wings that are similar to a bat yet reminiscent of dragon wings. The pair of wings had a wingspan of about 1.5 meters each and looked powerful. The skin covering the bone structure of the wings are deep violet of color with runic symbols that glow in blue light. The rest of the front part of the wings are of light purple in color, giving the wings, while the back part continued the color scheme of deep violet color. Adrian's eyes sparkled as if it saw a treasure. He really wanted to know how to do that. Askeler then told him that unlike other species in the world that has the capability to fly, the imps are a special case. The imp species are said to have been unable to fly when the first generation were born. The first generation of imps were the weakest of the Deimos race back then, as they did not possess the sublime mastery of origin magic like the Jinn or the immense strength of the Diabolans. Trying to become relevant to the race, the imp then prayed to the twin gods and they answered him through a dream. The dream entailed that the imp was soaring through the endless skies with its proud wings as if the sky was not the limit. "So basically, we got the idea to sprout wings through a dream," said Adrian in a bewildered tone, which resulted in him cutting off Askelair's story. Askelair looked at him with a smile but had an aura of intimidation. "Okay, carry on. Sorry for bothering you," Adrian said immediately to pacify Askelair, then continued listening to the story. Askelair told him that with that inspiration in mind, the imp was then trying to replicate what was needed to in order realize that dream. They practiced day and night, finding inspiration on how wings of other beings work or how they function, until they did not get a single result. "What? You told me that story but it did not even tell me how can I sprout my wings," Adrian fumingly said. Askelair then coughed and handed Adrian a potion with embarrassment written all over Askelair's face. "You are actually the only one who has the patience to listen to my story." "Ho ho ho," Askelair said laughingly with a mischievous tone. Item. Cosmorigin Potion Effect. Gives the user a pair of wings that are usable for the user. Can only consumed by the imp species. Consuming this potion when not an imp will melt the consumer's body, so beware. This is not enough compensation from wasting my precious time. Adrian bickered. I hope this will be helpful for you then," Askelair said as if bribing Adrian. Item. Deimos Robe Effect. VIT +5, DX +5 requirement. Level 10 Description. A robe made to be used by Deimos magic users when they have passed the initiation rite of adulthood. Adrian quickly drank the potion and a notification popped up. Player has acquired the active skill Flight. Wings then sprouted from Adrian's back. The wings had a wingspan of about a meter, which were half a meter shorter than Askelair's. The wings did not have runes that emitted a blue glow. Adrian then asked why his wings did not have runes on it, and Askelair answered that because his persona is not yet that high. Adrian then looked at the skill that he gained and said goodbye to Askelair as he went to an empty area that he could practice flying. Skill. Flight Effect. Uses the player's wings in order to defy gravity and become airborne. Mana. 10 to activate and drains 1 mana every 1 second. Cooldown. 0.1 seconds. No wonder the dragonkin do not stay airborne all the time. The mana consumption is just ridiculous, Adrian uttered. Adrian then started practicing to fly with Sirius watching him as he tried his multiple tries. First, he imagined that his wings were flapping, and it did, but not at the same time. That resulted in him hovering off the ground but lost balance in the air, which he fell face first. Adrian then distributed his remaining status points so that he could use the skill for long periods of time. Adrian tried for about 8 hours in game until he could hover off the ground with perfect center of gravity and his wings were in sync. He also used all of his mana potions in his inventory since he did not want to stop practicing. He only got 30 minutes left until he needed to log out before a notification popped up. Flight skill achieved. Increased in mastery. I would get the quest rewards for tomorrow. I would just sell in the online auction the soul stone I got. Adrian thought. Adrian set up the item for auction and linked the payment to his phone. Name. Equinox race. Deimos, Quarter Asmodean, species. Imp, Lesser Demon, title. Champion of the Twin Gods job. Summoner LVL. 10 EXP 0/100% HP 500/500 MP 350/350 VIT. 1020 plus 5 STR 813 int. 10 plus 1025 plus 10.agi. 520 dex. 520 plus 5 end. 818 available stat points. 0 skills. Job skills, expand, active skills, expand, passive skills, expand, racial skill. Origin magic, expand, equipment. Head. None body. Deimos robe feet. None weapon. Twilight demi gauntlets earrings. None necklace. None waist. None right hand. Ring of the queen be left hand. None. Chapter 23. Lucky one, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian woke up the next morning and did his morning exercise before he went to the pod. He managed to move his legs partially for just a moment, but that made his day brighter. He hurriedly logged into the game with the expectation that it would be a great day. He the summoned Sirius then went his way to find Askelair to submit his quest completion. Quest growing stronger 2 completed, quest reward random rune box has been acquired, item. Random rune box description. Opening the box will give the user a random rune stone that can be used to fill the empty sockets of equipment. Runes vary from common to mythical. Expand to look at percentage or drop rate. Adrian clicked the to check the drop rate and he could not believe it. Drop rate. Common. 50% uncommon. 30% rare. 15% epic. 0.4% legendary. 0.9% mythical. 0.1% Adrian could not believe the percentages that the box entails. The drop rate for mythical rune stones was abysmal. At best, he could hope for was a rare rune stone. He was going to open the rune box when he remembered a specific item that could potentially boost his chances. Item. Coin of Fortune effect. Increases the drop rate of items inside a dungeon. Can also increase the chances of obtaining a higher tier item for a loot box. Consumable. Description. A coin said to have been created by the god of luck and fortune, Fortinius. This was the item that could increase his chances of obtaining at least an epic, if he was really lucky. Do you want to consume Coin of Fortune and use it for the random rune box? Y/N, the Coin of Fortune has been consumed. The drop rate has been reinforced and changed. Please recheck the drop rate. Adrian then clicked the new drop rate that he was given and he was stupefied. Drop rate. Uncommon. 30% rare. 50% epic. 15% legendary. 0.4% mythical. 1% he jumped for joy and he only stopped when Askelair was looking at him funny. Adrian then coughed and then fixed his posture before opening the random rune box. As he was opening the rune box, the light peeking from the box suddenly shot out a beam that illuminated the area. When the light subsided, a rune stone was seen floating in front of Adrian. The rune was glistening and had a sparkle. It was red in color and was pulsating an invisible force. Item. Rune of Explosive Force tier. Mythical effect. Gives the weapon the skill Geoforce. Description. A rune said to have been made from the heart of a dying star. The stone was then inscribed by the goddess of language, Lingua. Skill. Geoforce effect. Enlarges the weapon but keeps its weight the same as its normal form. Only the user will not feel the weight change. Gives the weapon 50% adaptive damage increase. Allows the user to shoot blasts of condensed mana from the weapon for 5 MP. Adrian's eyes was already tearing up due to the incredible luck that he has experienced. It is a pity that he only has 1 coin of fortune. Askelair though was shocked that the random rune box that he gave Equinox managed to produce a mythical rune stone. Askelair did not know that Adrian wasted a coin of fortune. He would have shake Adrian's body and tell him why waste a valuable treasure for a random rune box. Congratulations, young one. You seem to have the luck of the gods with you. Askelair said happily. Askelair then gave Adrian his next part of the quest. Quest notification growing stronger 3 Askelair wants you to become stronger and acquire you sub job. Clear condition. Achieve level 15, get a sub job reward. Ring of Power. Adrian was surprised that Askelair wanted him to get a sub job. It was still too early for him to consider getting a sub job because you need to be level 15 to even get one. A sub job is basically a secondary job or what is more commonly known as a production job. Sub jobs vary, for example blacksmith or Magitech engineers. Sub jobs not only increase the player's experience in playing the game but also improves battle experience. For example, a blacksmith sub job could give you the brittle passive skill that decreases the armor's defenses when hit by a weapon. Although some players focus more on their sub job since it earns more moolah if done right. Adrian accepted the quest since he got nothing better to do and went to look for the quest board in the Paradox Plane to get more quests. As he was walking to quest board, he looked at the auction and it almost made him faint. Equals 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 as soon as Adrian logged out the night before and set the soul stone for auction. At first, it only got bids for about silver coins. Until, the big guilds managed to caught wind of the soul stone that was for sale. The big guild basically outbid each other since they knew the potential of this soul stone. The big guilds do not know if the seller was a godlike summoner or a stupid one for not recognizing the soul stone's potential. If given to the right insectomancer, the player would be able to raise an army, and it was also a silver grade soul stone, which means the creature could evolve. The price capped to about 557 gold coins, which is about $557 US. The Evergreen Guild managed to get the soul stone, which everyone more or less predicted since they have an insectomancer named Mariposa. Mariposa is one of the up-and-coming summoner superstars since she is known as the Insect Queen. Not only was she really good and versatile as an insectomancer, she was also rather beautiful and charming. The auction house deducts about 10% of the sales as tax and service fee. All in all, Adrian managed to get $501.3 as payment. Equals 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 the amount of money he got almost made him faint. He could splurge the money to get a costume for his character so that he could hide his armor if ever he wants to become a streamer. He wanted to become a streamer so that he could earn a couple of money so that he is not reliant on his father on paying the monthly subscription for the game pod. He then skipped his way to the quest board that earned him stares from the NPCs. Chapter 24. Mysterious Egg. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian managed to reach the quest board. He passed by different NPCs. The NPCs were of course that of the Deimos race. Jinns, imps and diabolans of different stature and jobs make the city square. The Paradox Plane consists of 3 towns which corresponds to the 3 species of the Deimos race. He was marveling at the sight of the uniqueness of the city square and inadvertently managed to stumble right in front of the quest board. The quest board were full of quests of varying difficulty and types. The quests were mainly of either subjugation or harvesting. There were some that have escort quest, but the level requirements were in the hundreds, which he would not reach anytime soon. After continuous browsing he managed to finally find a good quest. Quest: Salamander Fire Pouch. Level requirement: Level 10 Dungeon. Flaming Burrow. Description: Get 5 fire pouch of the red salamander. After collection give the quest item to Gianna. Reward: Engraving stone. The reward for this quest was that Adrian needed to bind his rune stone in his weapon slot. He then proceeded in finding the portal that directs to the Flaming Burrow dungeon. After confirming the right fracture, Adrian with Sirius in tow went ahead into the unknown. The dungeon Flaming Burrow was not a known dungeon by many since when Adrian searched for details about the dungeon, no results popped up. There was a great chance this dungeon was unexplored and it could get him the first explorer reward. The first explorer reward consists of the 2 times experience bonus and a slight increase on dropping higher tier items. This is the reason why the large guilds tend to monopolize or fight for this instances, since it's the perfect way to grind for levels. As Adrian exited the fracture and was teleported outside the dungeon, he now knows why it was called Flaming Burrow. The dungeon entrance was apparently, as the name sounds, was a burrow or a hole in the ground, though it was not flaming though. It looks like the dungeon got its name because of being near a volcano. He entered the dungeon and was surprised by the sudden announcement. Player Equinox has been the first to discover the Flaming Burrow dungeon. Player Equinox is given the double experience bonus and drop rate increase for the first clear of this dungeon. Upon entering, Adrian could now get the flaming name that was given to his dungeon. It was hot inside of it and his stamina consumption is greater compared to normal temperature dungeons. As Adrian with Sirius entered the dungeon, they managed to see that there was a ceremony being held by what can only be called a red salamander shaman and 10 red salamanders. Monster. Red salamander LVL 10 HP 150/150 description. Bipedal salamanders that are as big as an adult human. Capable of breathing flames for a brief moment. Their flame sacs are said to be extremely useful ingredients in brewing flame resistance potions. Monster. Red salamander shaman LVL 12L.CHP 180 out of 180 description. A variant species of the red salamander that are as big as an adult human. Capable of breathing flames for a brief moment. Their flame sacs are said to be extremely useful ingredients in brewing flame resistance potions. Able to use hexes in order to curse targets. From afar it looked like they are venerating an egg. The egg has a scaly shell that is red in color. The shaman is practically dancing in front of the egg and singing a song like it was performing a ritual. Adrian then conjured up a space mine in the middle of the praying red salamanders, but he was noticed by the shaman. The red salamander shaman started to hiss as if barking up commands. Guess we got noticed, buddy. Sirius, howl. Adrian told Sirius and he too prepared himself. Sirius' howl echoed in the cave structure and he lunged himself towards the red salamanders. The red salamander shaman then performed a weird dance and the red salamanders' bodies shone bright with green light. Adrian knew this was the effect of receiving a buff, but he did not know what. Sirius then managed to attack the nearest red salamander, but Adrian was shocked. 40 HP. Usually Sirius's damage would be in the hundreds. It seems the red salamanders have high defense and was now just boosted by the red salamander shaman. Adrian then detonated the space mine that he previously made in order to confuse the enemies charging at them. The red salamanders just brushed off the damage they took while their bodies shone with a white light, and the red salamander shaman was seen casting another spell. Apparently the red salamander shaman cast a healing spell towards his red salamander minions. Adrian got annoyed by this shaman. He wanted to plant a space mine near the shaman, but he was too far from the coverage area. You leave me with no choice then. Sirius, Phantom Rush. Adrian yelled. Sirius then broke from the confines of this world and vanished while the coverage area turned into a gray-colored zone. Sirius started attacking the red salamanders vigorously. After about 4 strikes a red salamander turned to pixels. Adrian was supposed to rejoice, but it took Sirius about 1 second to finish one of the red salamanders. Adrian did not sit idly by and kept making space mines. It was a good thing that the mastery went up, which enabled him to conjure up a space mine in 4 seconds. Sirius' Phantom Rush ended, but he only managed to take out 5 red salamanders. The remaining 5 were damaged by Adrian, but not by a lot. It seems the red salamanders have higher magical resistance compared to physical resistance. The red salamander shaman did a weird dance again, but this time shadow tendrils were made and managed to bind Sirius. Adrian then got worried since the remaining red salamanders ganged up on Sirius. He conjured up a space mine and detonated it at the red salamanders' faces, but it did not switch aggro at him and Sirius was still bounded. Sirius' HP was now down to half, which prompted Adrian to panic. He then looked at the shaman. It seems it was channeling the skill. Adrian then activated flight and flew towards the red salamander shaman. When he was in range, Adrian conjured and detonated a space mine. It exploded right in front of the red salamander shaman, which angered it, but the bindings on Sirius was dispelled. Getting the Red Salamander shaman's attention, Adrian then continued conjuring space mines. He ordered Sirius to deal with the Red Salamanders first before helping him take down the shaman. The Red Salamander shaman was furious since Adrian was not taking it seriously. The shaman then conjured a shadow double of itself. Its very own shadow solidified and taken form. It had the silhouette of the Red Salamander shaman. Together with its shadow, it fired mana bullets at Adrian. The shaman tried to shoot Adrian out of the sky. Adrian maneuvered through the onslaught of attacks attempting to dodge. Although he managed to dodge some mana bullets, he was still hit or grazed at areas not vital, which continued causing him to be airborne. He was now contemplating on what to do since he was wasting mana at a fast rate and he needed to end this match. After a few seconds, Sirius managed to defeat the remaining Red Salamanders and assisted Adrian in dealing with the Red Salamander shaman. Adrian commanded Sirius to execute Phantom Rush, and that made the aggro shift to Sirius. Adrian went back to the ground and supported Sirius with the mana he had left by conjuring space mines. After a few more minutes, the Red Salamander shaman finally drew its last breath as Sirius was biting its neck. Player Equinox has leveled up, Sirius has leveled up. Adrian breathed a sigh of relief and after a few minutes picked up the loot that was dropped. Item: Flame Sack X6 tier. Common description: an important ingredient in making fire resistance potions. Item: Red Salamander Shaman Ornamental Necklace tier. Rare requirement: Level 12 effect. Increases mana regeneration by 100%. Reduces mana consumption of skills by 5%. Fire resistance increases by 5%. Description: a necklace with a fire stone centerpiece with feathers adorning its sides. Said to only worn by shamans that revere the god of fire, Ignatius. There were some silver and bronze coins too, which he happily collected. Adrian was going to exit the dungeon, but he remembered the egg that the salamanders were worshipping. He went to the altar and picked up the egg and inspected it. Item: Mysterious Egg tier. Description: an egg with unknown origins. Take it to a beast master to know the egg's details. Adrian then stored the egg in his inventory since it's supposed to be a monster, but he just does not know which one. Since the salamanders seem to be worshipping it, it must become great monster when it hatches. Adrian then returned back to the Paradox Plane to submit the quest items. Chapter 25. Hatching the Egg. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian then returned back to the Paradox Plane in order to look for Gianna so that he could finish the quest. He asked around from the other NPCs and was led to a shop that had a rock formation shaped like a flask. It was a bit of a walk to get there, but he quickly reached the shop. Adrian went inside the shop and upon entering there was an aroma of medicine, herbs and other items that gave off a scent. He also saw an assortment of potions that ranged from restorative potions to elixirs that cured status ailments. He was looking at the wares when suddenly a female djinn came garbed in what looked like a gypsy attire. "What can I help you with, cutie?" the female djinn said as he winked at Adrian. "I am looking for someone named Gianna. I am here to turn over the quest item for the flame sack." Adrian said shyly since he was flustered by the female djinn's acts of flirting. "The one you are looking for would be me. I am Gianna, the alchemist of the Paradox Plains. At your service," Gianna said playfully. Adrian then gave her the flame sacks needed for the quest to be considered complete. Gianna happily gathered the flame sacks and excused herself for a moment to get the reward for the cute imp in her shop. After a few seconds, the female djinn returned with a hexagonal white stone in her hand. He handed the stone to Adrian. Item: Engraving Stone tier. Rare effect. Used as a catalyst to engrave the rune stone on an item. Can only be used on weapons or armor of the same tier or lower as the stone. Disappears once used. Description: a peculiar stone said to have been used since the inception of rune making as a catalyst to bind rune stones to armors and weapons. Adrian then thanked Gianna. He bought some consumables like HP and MP potions and a small elixir even though it was a bit costly. Item. Small elixir effect. Cures any minor status effects. Adrian was about to say goodbye and go away until he remembered about the egg that he managed to get at the Flaming Burrow. He then asked Gianna if there was a summoner or something like a monster breeder that can distinguish egg species here in the Paradox Plane. Gianna then answered gladly and said that there was a monster breeder here but he was a bit eccentric and do not know if he would even entertain Adrian. I could at least try. I mean there is no harm in trying, right? Adrian said. If you insist. There is an establishment a couple of minutes from here that has different creatures roaming. He is usually there tending to his ranch. Gianna iterated. Adrian thanked Gianna for her help and bid her goodbye. Just like the alchemist said there was a ranch at the direction she pointed. Adrian managed to reach the ranch in about 20 minutes or so. There he saw an imp who looked old and was about 4 feet in height because he was hunched. Adrian then came close to the old imp only to be berated to go away and not bother him. Go away. Can't you see that I am very busy right now, said the grumpy old imp without even looking at Adrian. Adrian was shocked because the old imp did not even look at him. The old imp even turned him away without batting an eye. Adrian was flabbergasted by the rudeness of this NPC. It seems the programmers have vented their frustration using this NPC. This NPC must have been the incarnation of the programmers' evil thoughts upon making this paradox plane. Usually NPCs are supposed to have neutral stances unless you are of course from different empires. Adrian did not mind the old imp's behavior and continued with his request since he was warned that the person in question was eccentric. I am sorry to bother you sir but I have a monster egg and I would like to know what kind it is and maybe how to hatch it if possible. Adrian said in a polite tone. Bedodem, an egg you say, the old imp's ears perked up from what he just heard and faced Adrian. He then continued, well, where is it then? I do not have all day the old imp demanded. Adrian was speechless and just took out the egg from his inventory and let the old imp view it. The old imp eyes sparkled when he got to see the egg as if he found treasure. The old imp immediately grabbed the egg without Adrian even noticing. Don't worry, I will not steal your egg. Oh. What a beauty. Its red scales that glistens when light shines upon it, the old imp said as if praising the love of his life. He then suddenly looked at Adrian and asked where did you obtain this beauty? Adrian then recounted the whole encounter to the eccentric old imp. The old imp then introduced himself as Pan. Pan then gave Adrian back his egg and told him Adrian that it seems he was blessed by luck. If Adrian knew that almost every first explorers were given a monster-related item as a guaranteed reward, he would have laughed at himself for thinking he was blessed by the god of luck. Adrian then awkwardly thanked Pan but the old imp was already petting Sirius and playing with his soulbound. Pan then answered that what Adrian was carrying was a dragon egg but he did not know just what kind since dragons were quite rare after all. When Adrian then inspected the egg, it now displayed a different description. Item. Unknown dragon egg tier. Description. An egg of a dragon. Extremely rare to find. Close to hatching. Adrian was happy to see that he managed to get a rare monster which he could seal once it hatches. There was a dilemma though. How can he hatch the egg? Pan then smiled and told the young imp to follow him inside his home as if knowing the predicament Adrian was facing just by reading his face. Inside Pan's house there was what looked like a gigantic bed made of hay. Pan then told Adrian to put the egg there and wait for it to hatch. He knew that Adrian was a summoner based on the weapon he was wearing. Adrian placed the egg at the hay bed and a timer appeared in front of him. 1 hour left before egg hatches. Since it was only 1 hour left, Adrian told Pan that he was going to wait near the bed. One way of sealing a monster is to wait it to hatch. At least that was what Pan said, since the first being that the monster sees would be imprinted by the monster. Imprinting is where a monster views the first scene as a parent or someone that it could trust. Now all he could do is wait. Chapter 26. Hatchling and Power Up. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. As Adrian was still waiting for the egg to hatch, he figured he could already socket the stone to his weapon. He took out the engraving stone and the rune of explosive force. He placed the rune stone and engraving stone near his demi-dot gauntlets. Suddenly, a notification popped up. Do you want to affix the rune of explosive force to the Twilight demi-gauntlets? Y/N, Adrian confirmed, and the three materials floated mid-air. The three swirled with a fast tempo. Then, after a few seconds, the demi-dot gauntlets was the only item seen floating mid-air. Adrian took the demi-dot gauntlet and inspected it. Weapon. Twilight demi-gauntlet, growth type, character bound, tier, uncommon, upgradable, description. A soul glove destined to be worn by the champion of the twin gods. It was forged by the god Arts and Craft, Hephaestus, at the request of the twin gods. Effect. INT plus 15, can be upgraded by assimilating better weapons, slots. 1. Rune of Explosive Force. 2. Empty 3. Empty 4. Empty 5. Empty. It was a good thing that the engraving stone did not account for the rune's tier, or Adrian would not be able to socket the thing to his weapon. He seriously wanted to test the weapon out, but it was not a good idea to test its capabilities here at someone else's house. He might just get pummeled by Pan, or worse, the monsters he was rearing. Putting that idea aside, Adrian thought to increase the glove stats or tier to at least rare. First he bought uncommon weapons in the auction, mainly gloves. He bought about 10 gloves and 2 swords that cost about 150 silver. 10 silver for each glove and 25 silver per sword, since it is in higher demand. He then tried feeding to his demi-dot gauntlets and a prompt appeared. Do you wish to use these weapons to feed to the Twilight demi-gauntlets? If yes, these weapons will disappear forever and cannot be salvaged. Y/N, Adrian said yes. Then he saw a screen in front of him that showed the animation of the uncommon weapons turning to dust, then the dust swirling towards the demi-dot gauntlets until it was absorbed. He then looked at the new stats of his weapon. Weapon. Twilight demi-gauntlet, growth type, character bound, tier, uncommon, upgradable, description. A soul glove destined to be worn by the champion of the twin gods. It was forged by the god Arts and Craft, Hephaestus, at the request of the twin gods. Effect. INT plus 15, STR plus 1, can be upgraded by assimilating better weapons, slots. 1. Rune of Explosive Force. 2. Empty 3. Empty 4. Empty 5. Empty. Judging by the given stats, the item gets 1 stat point per item trait. Since the swords he got was of the STR plus category, since uncommon weapons only give one type of stat boost. He then purchased other weapons that give stat boosts. He had a look of pain every time he purchased a weapon, as if his heart breaks. He told himself that this was an investment for the future, since this was a valuable weapon and other top guild would kill to get a growth type weapon. He continuously fed the demi-dot gauntlets weapons of uncommon quality until the stats did not rise anymore. He used 10 gold for the total purchases, which left him about 498 gold and 39 silver. Before he inspected the weapon, and a new prompt appeared in front of him. Twilight demi-gauntlet stat requirement is filled. Please upgrade to a higher rarity in order to continue to make the weapon stats higher. Number of items to increase to rare quality. 5 rare tier weapons. Adrian frowned when he saw the upgrade requirement. 1 rare tier weapon cost about 50 silver to 5 gold dependent on the level requirement and stats of the weapon. 100 bronze is equivalent to 1 silver, and subsequently 100 silver is equal to 1 gold. Adrian thought it was a good thing that there were no requirement on what type of weapons he needed, therefore he bought the cheapest ones he could find, which amounted to 2 gold and 39 silver. His gold now amounted to 496 gold. He reluctantly used the rare tier weapons to upgrade the Twilight Demi-Dot gauntlets. The usual animations was shown and now he inspected the new Demi-Dot gauntlets that he has. Weapon. Twilight Demi Gauntlet, Growth Type, Character Bound, Tier, Rare, Upgradable, Description. A soul glove destined to be worn by the champion of the twin gods. It was forged by the god Arts and Craft, Hephaesto, at the request of the twin gods. Effect. INT plus 20 STR plus 10 DX plus 10 AGI plus 10, can be upgraded by assimilating better weapons, slots. 1. Rune of Explosive Force 2. Empty 3. Empty 4. Empty 5. Empty. The stat stopped increasing after reaching 10. It was a shame that only INT, DX, STR, and AGI was the only increase since common and uncommon weapons only give those stats. The Demi-Dot gauntlets now have sharp claws ends and were now darker in color by a shade. The spaces at the joints now emit a faint violet glow that further enhances its look, giving it the illusion that the Demi-Dot gauntlets are scaly hands. Now, Adrian was really excited on testing the weapon out, especially his weapon's new passive. After all the enhancement was done, Adrian checked the egg's timer and it was only a minute left until it hatches. He equipped his weapon back again and he was surprised that the sharp claws was gone and it was now clawless and had holes for his fingers to pass through. It seems that the claws would only show up if he was not in a town's vicinity, he could only guess until he could go outside. After marveling at the improved weapon, he heard a hatching type of sound. crrk.crrk.crrk.crrkk. Then a tail was seen together with 4 claws. He then saw a head peek out and the creature looked at Adrian in wonder. Monster. Dragon species. Fire dragon, hatchling, male, LVL 1 HP. 50/50 description. Dragons are said to have been the apex species of the world. They have been created by the dragon god, Marduk. Every dragon have designated element they are born with, but there are some who possess mastery over more than one. When the dragon moved closer to Adrian and rubbed its head across him, he patted its head and took it into his arms since the cute baby dragon was about 1 feet in height. The dragon has red scales and little horns, a tail, but it did not have wings. Maybe it would get wings in the future when it evolves, but who knows. Adrian then used his skill seal when the dragon was accustomed to it. The dragon did not resist and instead looked happy. Please select a name for the soulbound monster. Adrian did not even give it much thought since he has been thinking of a name the minute it was identified as a dragon egg. Canlayan, Adrian said. Chapter 27. Dragon Tamer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian now looked at the new details that surfaced after the dragonling was hatched. Name. Canlayan species. Fire dragon, hatchling, LVL 1 HP. 50/50 EXP 0% per 100% skills. Active skills, expand, passive skills, expand, evolution. Possible he expanded the skills in order to see what skills Canlayan has. Skill. Baby breath effect. Shoot a petite elemental magic breath at the target. Skill. Dragon scales effect. Physical and magical attacks are reduced by 30%. Skill. Reverse scale effect. A small scale embedded near the heart of the dragon that makes attacks hitting the scale deal 50% more damage. Adrian was both happy and sad at the same time because of the unique passive skills of the dragon hatchling. The dragon scale passive makes him the ideal tank, but the reverse scale passive also made him vulnerable, although it was only at that particular spot. Nevertheless, he was still happy that he managed to tame a dragon. Summon. Canlayan, Adrian chanted. A red-colored magic circle appeared on the ground and with a flame effect, Canlayan surfaced. A prompt then appeared the moment Adrian summoned Canlayan. Dragon Tamer title has been acquired by Equinox. equals 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 equals. An alert was then transmitted to the high-rise building at a certain metropolis city. The control room blinked in red and white for 3 seconds as if signifying something. "Chief, someone managed to hatch a dragon," a woman in a ponytail said. "Go on, who is it then?" the chief said seriously. "It was that kid who unlocked the Asmodean quest line," the woman said nervously, for she knows what that means. "What? How did he manage to get a dragon egg this early?" "The eggs were supposed to be chanced upon in higher-level dungeons, not low-level ones, and those dungeons are hidden very well so that it would not be found easily," the chief said as if irritated by the revelation. Chief. We ran a scan on the systems to check if there were bugs in the system and," the woman said. "And," said the chief in a slightly angered tone. "Apparently, it all checks out. The AI increased the probability of that egg happening to be there because the head programmer coded it that as days pass the probability of the egg being there increases. He did that to all dungeons so that dungeons that are harder to find give out better rewards," the woman said. "Still, it should not have been that easy to find a dungeon given the fact that dragon eggs trigger the quest of the Dragon of Disaster. Also, the probability should not be that high in encountering the egg," the chief sighed as he knows being angry would not solve anything. "The kid triggered the first explorer reward, thereby increasing the odds of finding the egg. Also, the programmer for the Paradox plane had no idea that a dragon egg was there at that dungeon, and he is being scolded by the head programmer this very moment," the woman said. No worries. Even if the kid got the dragon, the quest only triggers when he reaches level 90 since the difficulty for the Dragon of Disaster is SSS class. Just tell the programming team to look out for instances like this again. Recheck the Paradox Planes portal so that it would not lead the kid to other quest triggers. It was a good idea that the fractures could only lead to dungeons up to level 20, which should narrow the rechecking, the chief said while relaxing his back at his chair. "Yes, chief," the woman bowed and left the room. Equals 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 equals. Adrian was surprised that he managed to get a new title since it was rare to get them. He looked at the benefits that the title brings. Title: Dragon Tamer Effect. Increases dragon and dragon-related skills by 10%. Increases likability to monsters with dragon blood. Description: This title is awarded to the first player who managed to tame a dragon, be it as a mount, pet or soulbound monster. Adrian was elated by the effects of the title since it strengthened Canlayan further. In Pandemonium, not only summoners could get monsters as a fighting force. A non-summoner job is entitled to one monster that could become either a mount or a pet depending on the preference of the player. These mounts and pets are sealed in what was called as a comrade stone and is limited to only one per player. The non-summoner player could get a mount which is mainly used as transportation but can still be used for battle with limitations. The player could also get a pet which is also called as battle pet since it is mainly used for battles for its assortment of skills but cannot be used for transportation since it is mostly small in stature. A summoner could also have the Comrade Stone but like any other players is limited to one. These Comrade Stones with monsters sealed cost a lot, which is why it is not popular for summoners since it could just tame a larger monster for mounts and also could be used for battle. After finishing checking the effects of the title, Adrian looked at Canlayan again, and now it was clear that maybe Canlayan is not a Western dragon but an Eastern-styled one since Canlayan does not have wings. Especially its design, Canlayan has 4 claws, 3 in the front and 1 opposite. Maybe if Canlayan becomes bigger he would look like that famous dragon from that anime where the main character powers up and shows a different form every other season. Another question that popped in Adrian's head is, how big will Canlayan get? Setting that idea aside for now, Adrian focused on what is important, and that is leveling up and accomplishing the quest in looking for clues on the Asmodeans. He would probably ask Askeladd on a potential lead first, which hopefully is accessible to his level. I mean, who doesn't want an overpowered skill at his grasp? Chapter 28. Investigating a graveyard. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Adrian could be seen annoying Askeladd to give him a mission that could give him a hint about the Asmodeans. Askeladd could not take the begging anymore and told him to ask another elder of the Deimos tribe. The Jinn elder who is famed for his mastery in the time aspect of time magic. Adrian then went his own way, which Askeladd did not mind since he was now free from the over-inquisitive young man. Equals in a majestic structure standing before a city of bustling trade, a group of 5 can be seen inside of what you could call a church. White pristine walls of marble could be seen in the halls as if giving the illusion that the halls are infinite. Angels of different sizes and shapes can be seen adorning these halls as statues and paintings. The group managed to reach the main area of the church, and there the mural of the Goddess of Light is shown with a height of about 50 meters, which must have cost a lot to build. When light hits the mural, the light scatters and gives the illusion that the Goddess of Light herself has descended to give her light to the world. In the main hall, a priestess dressed in white and gold can be seen welcoming the group. "Welcome back, heroes. I assume that the mission that we gave you has been fruitful," said the priestess with a beautiful face but with an expression of high superiority. "Yes, Your Holiness Pristina. We have managed to acquire the relic that you have ordered us to get. The acolyte did not speak to what he will do with the relic, thus we decided to deliver him to justice for the vile things that he has done," said Hoiwei, the current highest ranked player of the game. He then gave the crown fragment to the holy knight that presented himself to him. "You have done well, adventurers. As promised, here are your rewards. Take them and go," Pristina said in a monotonic voice. "Is that all that we get? Do we not even get clues on what the fragment does or what is for?" said an orc with slight irritated tone. "Silence, foul beast. Her Holiness is not talking to you," a holy knight shouted while sporting a battle stance. The priestess of the group suddenly calmed down her group and apologized for the rudeness of her teammate. "This will be the last time this should happen, Priest White. Keep your associates in check," said Pristina in a reprimanding tone. The group of 5 just bowed and left since the business with the Church of Light has been finished, though their orc teammate was not happy. It was not a secret that the Church of Light did not like other races other than the human race but tolerates the other races since they deem them as a necessity for the world's safety. Also, they could not overpower the other major churches of the world, which are the Church of Life and the Church of Dragons. Adrian was looking for the cave structure that has a clock, which Askeladd angrily said to him, which made him run out of the town hall. Luckily the Jinn elder was very popular. Adrian just asked the townspeople on the location and they happily told them the location of the Jinn elder's house. He finally reached the elder's abode and they were not kidding with the clock. The clock was floating on top of his abode. It was made of rock yet did not induce scratching noises when rocks scratch against each other. Adrian knocked the door and it just opened. He was creeped out and was about to leave when he suddenly got sucked inside of the house with door closing slowly as if nothing happened. Adrian was free falling and screaming his lungs out when he knew the state he was in. He was free falling for a few minutes when he heard a laugh from the side. He then landed in a platform with a thud and light from his surroundings suddenly flooded his vision. He was standing on what seems like a clock platform without the clock hands. Around him were similar platforms with similar aesthetic but with different size, and some were floating and moving. He suddenly heard something from behind him. "Ahem. What can I do for you, young man?" A Jinn that looks like an old man that is wearing a long grey robe with a big clock floating at his back. I didn't mean to intrude, but I was suddenly sucked inside your house. If you want I could leave, just please point me to the exit," Adrian said as he was standing. "There is no need, young one. I am sorry for playing prank on you, young lad. I just wanted to have a little fun," the old Jinn said. Why do all these elders seem childish, Adrian thought. As you may have known, I am the Jinn Elder and Chronomancer Koran, the old Jinn said. I am Equinox. I was only going to ask you if you by chance have any clue pertaining to what happened to the Asmodeans. Askeladd said you might know of the details. Adrian queried. And why do you want to know about them, young man? Did Askeladd put you up for this? Said Koran with slightly darker tone. I just want to know since I was given a mission by the twin gods. Adrian said. The twin gods, you say? I was wondering why my sentient house suddenly invited you in without my consent. Koran whispered to himself. Anyway, you are a chronomancer, right? Why can't you just turn back time or change history if you are a powerful time mage? Adrian asked, unaware of Koran's inner thoughts. Snapping back to the conversation, Koran answered with, you cannot use time magic to turn back time to thousands of years. Even if I could do that, my body will not be able to handle casting that spell even if our race is the textbook definition of immortal. Also, I can travel back through time, but changing the timeline could very well tear the fabric of reality. Why do you think the corrupt ants managed to arrive to our plane of existence? As if hearing something important from Koran, Adrian's ears perked up. Did you just say corrupt ants? Can you tell me more about them? Adrian asked. Koran smiled and said, that would be a topic for another day, young lad. I did say we could not change history, but that did not mean you could not travel back at time. But I thought we should not change the timeline, Adrian said with doubt. I could summon a portal to the past for you, but the restrictions should apply to you that you must not interact with beings belonging to the past. Stick to these rules and I would help you in your endeavor, Koran said with a smile on his face. I smell something fishy here, Adrian thought to himself while giving the elder scrutinizing looks. As if reading Adrian's mind, Koran explained himself. Fine, there is a special dungeon that I discovered that might give a clue about our ancestors, but it was protected by an energy shield, which is a restriction spell. Koran said with a sigh. Why didn't you say so earlier? I accept then so. Adrian's speech was cut short with Koran opening a portal beneath him, and this time Canlayan and Sirius was with him. Damn you, old man. You didn't even let me prepare, shouted Adrian with anger. After a few seconds, the trio landed on what looks to be a graveyard. Chapter 29. They're alive. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian arrived at a burial ground. He surveyed his surroundings first and looked at Sirius and Canlayan to check if they are fighting fit. He was wary of his surroundings because it was silent, eerily silent. They did not move from where they are standing due to the atmosphere of the dungeon. Adrian's concentration was boggled by a system prompt that happened. You have entered the Forgotten Graveyard. First Explorer reward has been given to player Equinox. 2 times experience point gain and increased drop rate for the first clear. Quest notification: love for the dead. The Chronomancer Koran wants you look for the heart of a gravekeeper that is said to live in the depths of the Forgotten Graveyard. Be wary, for the dangers of this dungeon is unknown. Once you obtain the quest item, you will be teleported out of the instance dungeon. Difficulty: a clear condition. Gravekeeper's undying heart reward. Epic Chronomancy Skillbook. Adrian was stunned by the mission objective. He cannot get out of the dungeon by dying. He would respawn back to the dungeon unless he gave up the mission, but who in the right mind would give up the quest, especially if an epic skill book was the prize? He really wanted the skill book that would be given to him. He is desperate for skills in order to increase his combat prowess and survivability. So far he only has 1 combat skill, 1 debuff, 1 healing skill and 1 aerial movement skill. Still, Adrian is both excited and nervous. An A-rank difficulty quest is not going to be easy, but it should be scaled to his level. He just prayed that he would become lucky and breeze through the dungeon. The trio started to move to a building with a broken metal gate. It seems this graveyard is styled like a crypt, though there are tombstones present above ground. Some tombstones were intact, some were badly damaged. It looked like the graveyard itself has been rotting, which made him curious as to when in the timeline did Koran send him to. At least, he did not have to be wary in changing the past like he was warned not to do. "Why do I feel like I am being watched by multiple people?" Adrian whispered as the three of them were walking to the crypt's entrance. Sirius suddenly stopped and growled, which put Adrian into his battle stance. He put space mines around him so that he could not be caught off guard. If something sprang up to attack him, the space mine would detonate and damage the attacker. He beckoned Canlayan to his side because he was just a hatchling and he could get knocked out easily. After a few minutes of keeping the battle stance, he finally saw the monsters that he would be facing. Hands started coming out of the ground. Some were skeletal while some had rotten flesh. The zombies, if you could call them, that had armors covering their bodies, which one could infer that the zombies have been warriors when they were alive. Adrian inspected the zombies to give him more information about his enemies. Monster. Zombie.lvl 15 HP 500/500 Description. Classified as the lowest tier undead next to skeletons. Low mobility but has massive damage and health. Has corrosive properties to their attacks. Adrian could not believe the enemies in the dungeon, they were higher leveled than him. He was now questioning himself if the reward was really worth the effort. He was inside an unknown dungeon that could potentially lead him to go down to level 10 because he could die more a lot. In Pandemonium, you could not go below level 10 and you could respawn infinitely until level 20. If you pass level 20 you would not be able to respawn infinitely, instead you would be ejected out of the game for 4 hours. This was made in order to entice the player base to mix and match skills and test its effectiveness, which some basically died testing the skills combos they created. Given the special nature of the dungeon, Adrian could guess that this dungeon has a level restriction of 20 since he would respawn here at the dungeon. The main boss of this dungeon is probably at level 20. He could not believe it, he was just at level 11. Adrian did not know that in order to trigger the quest is that you must have at least one party member and your average was level 10 or greater, but since he was a summoner, Sirius was considered a party member. The quest was supposed to be normally for a player that is level 20 due to the difficulty of the quest, and Koron would provide his assistant as a party member for him. Poor Adrian, he should not pester Askelaur again so that he would not suffer like this again. The zombies numbered in the hundreds and moved slow. The trio was encircled by the number of zombies, thus Adrian ordered Sirius to decimate the enemies. Sirius charged through the enemies and started his assault. Sirius was easily defeating the zombies because he was quick, but Sirius cannot keep this for long. He ordered Canlayan to use his attack skill since mana would not be a problem to him since he was not level 10 yet, but even Canlayan cannot keep up with the increasing number of enemies. Adrian casted space mines until his mana hit rock bottom. He made a safe area for him and Canlayan so that they would be well protected from the hordes of zombies. Adrian was getting worried that he only created a temporary solution until he remembered his new weapon's ability. Adrian smiled and activated the rune. Geoforce, Adrian shouted. The demi-gauntlets increased in size about 10 times. It was now 2/sized gauntlets that has sharp claws. It is 3 feet in length and looked imposing. Adrian was amazed by the transformation of his demi-gauntlet. Now, he could pummel and even shred his enemies because to him the gauntlet weighed almost nothing, but to his enemies it weighed about a ton. With his weapon ability being this good, Adrian jumped towards the dozens of enemies in front of him, leaving Canlayan spitting fire breaths to zombies that are going near him. All that remains in his mind is the experience that he would get farming this many zombies. Chapter 30. Entering the Crypt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adrian and his soulbounds are horribly tired because of the constant battling for about 2 hours. Sirius was full of wounds and so did Adrian. Both were exhausted and covered with scratches and occasional bite marks. Canlayan did not fare any better, for he has a sore throat for abusing his manaless skill even if he was saved from damage because of the safe haven that Adrian created. Adrian lied down on the ground that were littered with corpses and items the zombies generated, his demi-gauntlets returning to normal size. Then he looked at the system prompt screen. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Player Equinox has leveled up. Sirius has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Player Equinox has leveled up. Sirius has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. Canlayan has leveled up. The fight was difficult but was a good haul for experience points. Canlayan managed to reach level 9 in one fell swoop. Adrian and Sirius leveled up twice, which was much needed since by the level of difficulty of this dungeon. Both Sirius and Adrian are also close to leveling up again. It was a good thing that the zombies were brittle in a sense that blunt force scattered their bodies, though they could still move, which Adrian thought was gross. It seems that the 50% adaptive damage that the rune of explosive force entailed is the type of damage that is applied by the weapon. If the giant gauntlet is used as the thing that applies damage, the damage applied is of the physical aspect. If the damage is of the magical aspect, the bonus will apply to magic attacks instead. This revelation made Adrian rethink his stat point allotment, since increasing his strength would increase his physical damage. He usually ignored the strength stat, but now he could not. This means he could become like a magic swordsman or battle mage in that regards. After resting up a bit and applying HP and MP potions to speed up their recovery, Adrian ordered his soulbounds to help with obtaining the loot. The weird part about the loot is that zombie body parts were considered loot. The zombies gave decent experience but little to no money. Even the armor and weapon drops that some have are classified as broken. Still, it was a decent haul of items since the zombies that they also defeated numbered about more or less 300. Acquired Zombie Tooth X30, acquired Zombie Bones X58, acquired Dirty Clothes of the Deceased X103, acquired Corrupted Spirit Fragment X82, acquired 46 silver coins. He checked the items that he acquired to check if they were useful to him. Item. Zombie Tooth Description. The tooth of a zombie. Don't know how you got it, but okay. Can be used in alchemy or necromancy. If used in alchemy, it can strengthen poisons. If used in necromancy, it strengthens the summoned undead for a period of time. Consumable. Item. Zombie Bones Description. Bones of zombies. Grave robbing is bad, but bone robbing is something else. Useful in alchemy and necromancy. Item. Dirty Clothes of the Deceased Description. What's the use for this? Only shady individuals collect these. Can fetch a price from certain collectors. Item. Corrupted Spirit Fragment Description. Used as a conduit to house souls of the undead in order to soulbound. Combine fragments to obtain Corrupted Spirit Stone. Although the description of some of the items are somewhat dubious, the items are indeed useful, except maybe for the dirty clothes of the deceased. It seems the spirit stones are the way for undead monsters to become soulbound monsters. He would find that out later, since he was still in the dungeon, and the corrupted adjective before the spirit stone seems more than meets the eye. He would just ask the elder NPCs after this dungeon is over. Now that Adrian has a better look at Canlayan, the dragon hatchling now has grown considerably and is now 3 meters long and can hover in mid-air. It seems he can now utilize a new skill or improved version of his breath skill which Canlayan uses. He also had a new passive skill. Fire Dragon's Breath Effect. Deals damage over an area affected and gives the target's elemental damage over time. Adrian with his soulbounds went down the entrance of the crypt. The halls of the crypt looked old and worn down with dead tree roots peeking out from the walls. The halls are illuminated by torches that light up when the player is getting near it. At the end of the hall is a wide room with what seems to be a suit of armor without a helmet. The trio entered the room and the torches lit up the while room. The crypt entrance disappeared when stones and earth fell down the entrance, blocking any chance to escape. After a few seconds of silence, the suit of armor started to creak. Slowly the armor moved until it was able to move freely. The suit of armor stopped moving when it reached the middle of the room, and white-blue flames suddenly erupted inside of the armor, which gave it the illusion that it has a head. Adrian was not happy with this development and sported a battle stance, enlarging his demi-gauntlets. For when he inspected the monster, he knew this battle would not be easy. Monster. Dullahan LVL 18 HP, 1000/1000 Description: this sinister being appears as a man or a woman riding upon a black horse, but the rider has no head upon their shoulders. Typically, the Dullahan carries its head under its arm. The head appears dead and rotten, sometimes compared to having flesh resembling old cheese, with a demonic grin spread across its face from ear to ear. Contrary to its description, this particular Dullahan did not have a head, which means this monster was probably a unique monster, and unique monsters have vastly higher stats than its counterpart.